Hello and welcome to Jehan's Baithak. I'm your host GD, and joining me today once again is my friend and your co-host Vedant. On our new segment, Jehan's Baithak, we talk about Jehan Daruvala's weekend in F2 as we follow the Formula 2 circus around the world. So let's grab some chai, take our seats, ready your opinions, and dive right into the conversation. Hello Vedant. The F2 season, along with the F3 season, along with the F1 season, has also kicked off. And a bit of a mixed bag for the Indian fans this weekend. Obviously, we'll be talking about the three big things that happened, but not the happiest weekend for us, was it?
Yeah, absolutely not. I mean, there were positives to take out of the weekend and a podium as well. But I think, on the whole, when you look at the season and when you look at what the expectations were, I think it was not the performance any of us were expecting. And I think it puts Jehan Daruvala on a severe back foot on what could be his last season in Formula 2.
Absolutely. So the very first thing that we'll be talking about today on this podcast will be the fact that the weekend was a mixed bag for Jihan as Prema too struggled to get a flying start, and Theo Pocher, as expected, leads the championship while Liam Lawson follows closely with a double podium. So let's talk about Jehan Daruvala. Obviously, Vedant, what have we learned this weekend, and what does he need to do to continue to be to become a title challenger in the next few races? Obviously it's a long season this year. We have 14 rounds, I believe. So 28 races, 14 sprint, 14 feature
Features,
races.
yeah.
So it's not a short season. So obviously a bad start doesn't mean the end of the world, but definitely there has to be he needs to get on pace as quickly as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I think from what I had seen in the previous seasons, I think Jehan often struggled with his race starts, and I mean even though he had a good race start in the sprint race and converted that race start and the subsequent battle, brilliant battle with Raj Boschong into a brilliant P2, but I think his feature race start was, what I term one of a classic Jehan, mistake basically, because from what I can remember, uh, he has he has struggled with his starts a lot in the past. So I think that is one of the key areas he needs to improve upon. But I think starting P7, I mean when you are starting P7 and you do not get a good start and you fall out of the top 10 in a very competitive Formula 2 grid, it's very difficult to come back and make good use of your tire strategy. But even but yeah, I think it's going to be a long season ahead, and Formula 2, anything can happen, and we have seen people overcome deficits as well. But then again, the competition Jehan is against, is too good to be taken lightly.
Yeah, and the expectation was sky high, especially because Jihan was with the Prema team this season. The Prema team is the premier team
Yeah.
in any junior in any junior racing series out in Europe. So obviously the expectation was sky high from there. But Prema struggled in general. Their second driver Dennis Hogger didn't have a great weekend either. Probably a worse weekend than Jihan had. Over the 2 days. So arguably Jihan did pretty good comparatively to his teammate, but once again, just not enough to have the start he would have wanted. But what are some positives that we can take out of this weekend? Obviously there was more that happened during the race. If you want to elaborate on that during the feature race, which led to the fact that Jihan couldn't even get himself back up into the points.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, Dennis Hogger is, talking about Dennis Hogger and Prema in general. Dennis Hogger is a rookie, so he may take a few races to get on terms with Jehan's pace. Jehan has raced in Formula 2 for 2 seasons already. So, I mean, that may be the case, but yeah, I think not a good weekend for Prema as a whole, given the fact that Dennis Hogger absolutely dominated Formula 3 last year. But yeah, in the feature race, I mean, Jehan, after that bad start, he basically was out of the points, and his his tire strategy was in line with the front runners, but he was offset by the back runners. And even after his pit stop, the after the pit stop, when he put on the options, the performance picked up and he was making progress. But then again, when disaster strikes, it strikes as a whole. And Roy Nisani was was very racy, I would say, and smashed into Jehan and just put his front wing off, damaged his front wing. So Jehan had to make another pit stop to fix his front wing, and that, I think, basically that cost him a decent points finish. He could have recovered. There were late safety cars as well, so he could have gained some positions, but making that extra pit stop in such a tight pack will always cost you.
Yeah, and he was not the only one to suffer the same fate. Obviously, we'll talk about the others who suffered a similar fate in a minute. But hopefully, Jehan comes back in Saudi. I believe they're going to Saudi. So hopefully Jehan will come back in Saudi and put it on pole and take that win in the future race and put him on top. But obviously we only expect the very best from Jehan Daruvala here. Theo Pocher, got a bit lucky and now leads the championship after the two front runners, Jack Doohan and Yuri Vips, had a bad pit stop and again, suffered front wing damage. So that is there, and then now Liam Lawson, following closely with the double podium. So definitely Liam Lawson picking up from where he left off last season. But I think the second biggest news this weekend was the fact that the other Red Bull Junior rookie, Ayumu Iwasa, could be an unexpected championship challenger if he's able to pull it together. He had a scintillating race, both races, sprint and feature race. He made up 15 places, I believe, in the sprint race and made up 13 in the feature race. What do you have to say about that, Vedant?
I mean, he had a brilliant season. We were hearing about Ayumu Iwasa in the build-up in Formula 3, and I think he even raced in the Formula 3 Asia series that Jehan and Kush raced last year. So we have been hearing about him for over a year now, and he had a good Formula 3 season. But I think, as you said, he is a surprise to be to shine in Formula 2 at.
Yeah, he was not in any of our notes. He wasn't
exactly.
really in the news. No one was tweeting about him. But he definitely broke the internet for a little bit, at least, for those who follow F2, every time he went on to race this past weekend. So definitely someone to look out for. And the third biggest thing this weekend, Vedant, a very F2-esque thing, just the way we say, a very Formula E thing, the same way, a very F2-esque thing happened this weekend, which is multiple pit stop mistakes by teams. And we saw, tires and wheels flying all over the pit lane after a hastily done pit stop.
Yeah, absolutely. Yuri Vips definitely lost a win because of that. And Dennis Hogger lost a finish because of that. So, and I mean, yes, given the fact that Formula 2 teams are very small, the mechanics are also the engineers
and
yeah,
they're taking a multiple roles as a team.
And the pit crew is not a professional, sole pit crew like you might have in Formula 1. But these were some very basic mistakes. The jack got slipped and the tires didn't fit and whatever. So hopefully we don't see these mistakes and anymore. Obviously we will see them somewhere or the other. It might happen, but hopefully it does not cost someone a win and eventually a championship.
I mean, more than that, it's a safety issue. Those tires and wheels are not light at all. If they come hit you, you'll have to go to the medical room. You'll have to go to the hospital after after that. So definitely, for the safety of those who are around around the area, who are doing the pit stops and things like that.
Just look at it this way, Yuri Vips is a championship contender. He was winning. He finished P3, which is not far off, but that is 10 points off. And in a championship which is so close, and when you have Liam Lawson as your academy mate, and both of you and few more others are fighting for a Red Bull seat. So I think Yuri Vips, for Yuri Vips, it was a very big incident
Yep.
in itself. So
Absolutely. But yeah, that's pretty much the F2 weekend. Is there anything else you want to recap before we wrap up this podcast? It's been very short, but obviously there wasn't a lot of news. A little bit of a disappointing weekend for us. But anything else from you, Vedant, that you want to point out before we close out this podcast?
well, I mean, I think I mentioned Jehan's fight with Ralph
Ralph
Boschung,
Boschung.
which was phenomenal, which was what Formula 2 is all about. And but I think we should talk about Richard Vachour, because he came into Formula 2. I mean, no one, he was not in any of our notes. He's not a championship contender, but he did get Trident their first win since 2016. Now, I don't know, it does not say much about Trident or Richard Vachour, but I think that win puts him on the map, and I think that he can be he can trouble the championship favorites.
Yeah, yeah. And I think my highlight for the F2 weekend was just the lap, that Jack Doohan put in qualifying. Went out when the track was empty and then just put up a time that no one could even come close to. And that was absolutely beautiful to watch. It was awesome to see, everybody struggle to even get up there and, post a time that matches Jack Doohan. But unfortunately, his race didn't pan out the same way like his qualifying did. However, before we wrap up this podcast, I have another bit of news that I was hoping you would say, since you followed the race and I didn't, and that is Kush Maini in F3. Kush Maini showed great pace this weekend in Formula 3. Obviously, this is his debut season. He qualified P3, but unfortunately started both races from the pits because he missed his call to the Way Bridge. But however, even in the races, he showed great pace. He made up 15 positions in the sprint race and 13 in the feature race. I might have said something wrong about Ayumu Iwasa earlier because I think I mixed up the stats. But it's a long season, and the fact that Kush Maini is feeling so comfortable and so racy in the F3 car, we are only expecting the very best from him, and hopefully he'll challenge for the title or at least come close to it this season. So, all the best to him and all the best to Jehan. Anything else from you, Vedant, before we close out this podcast?
No, I mean, you didn't say wrongly for Ayumu, because he did make up a lot of places, maybe not the
Not
exact
15
amount.
and 13?
Yeah. So, but I mean, he started last in the sprint in the feature race, and was leading at one point. Obviously, because of his tire strategy, but then he finished.
Yeah, but he finished P16, so
Yeah,
basically 15 places.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, in the end, I think Kush Maini. So, we did not expect Kush to be racing in Formula 3.
Yeah, the expectations were really low.
And we did not expect him to be P3 in his first quali run. So, I think obviously we'll follow him as well throughout the season. And if the pace is what it is promised to be, and he's in MP Motorsport, which has a great lineup and which has a great team behind them. MP Motorsport is, along with Prema and Carling and all these guys, MP Motorsport is one of the good performers in junior motorsport, especially in Formula 2 and Formula 3. So I think it's a great opportunity for Kush to get that jump to Formula 2 through this season.
Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully, get some experience under his belt. Maybe there will be a Kush's Baithak next week, next year, or a Maini's Baithak next year. Who knows? Hopefully there is, but we'll see what happens over the course of the season. Thank you, Vedant, for joining us once again and enlightening us about what happened in Formula 2 this weekend. Obviously, we'll be following, or you will be following the F2 circus as it goes around the world, thankfully. Because waking up at 5 in the morning is not easy on a Sunday, so I will not be putting myself through that. But anyway, thank you once again for joining me, and we'll catch you on the next one.